I am curious to know. So we have authors that have written many, 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 many books, and some that are just getting started, which I'm really excited about. But I'd like to hear how each of you got started in writing, like what in writing and getting published first time. Some of you may have to reach back, but I'd like to hear some of these stories. And we can start, let's start with you, Julie. Would you tell us how you got started in writing?
Sure. I've always been an avid reader. I mean, I read everything. And I started writing, I don't know how many years ago, probably 20 years ago. And I was in a job that was just boring. And I kind of like had to find something to do. So I just sat down one day 100 years ago with a pencil and a piece of paper and just kind of started writing. And it just kept going. And I wrote a little bit every day because there was nothing else to do. And then I got it all finished and submitted it. And that was really just how I got started. I never wrote as a little girl. You know, a lot of people, they journaled or they wrote stories or they did it all through childhood. I wasn't like that. It just kind of came to me at once, and it's been, you know, spewing out ever since, or I should say spewing out ever since on the keyboard.
Thank you so much for sharing that. How about you, Karen? How did you get started?
I was one of those kids who wrote stories all the time. I would lock myself away in my room for an entire weekend and spend my time writing. But trying to seriously write my first novel was something I began probably in the mid-90s. That first novel took over 10 years writing on and off. And that was back in the days when everything was print. Of course, the ebooks didn't exist, and you still had to submit, often via an agent, to try and get a publisher to accept your manuscript. So somewhere I've got a drawer full of rejection letters from a lot of agents before I finally found a small publisher who was willing to take a chance on a new author. And my debut novel, which did win a debut Goldie in 2009, was published by that press. I now have the rights back to all of my books, and I publish them all under my own imprint. So I have 16 published at this point, and the 17th should be out late September.
Oh, and we are so very glad they gave me that chance. And thank you so much. How about you, Anne? I know that you have several books under your belt as well.
Yeah.
How'd you get started?
Well, I think like all of us, you know, I was a voracious reader, and I was also a very late bloomer, and didn't realize I was a lesbian, although everyone else on the planet knew, until I was in my early 30s. And not long after that, I discovered America Online and the wealth of fan fiction that was available for free, you know, at places like the Academy of Arts and the Athenaeum. And they're just, you know, I mean, it was amazing. It was like this treasure trove of free stuff you could read. So I read tons and tons and tons of it, and finally thought, well, I know that a sentence needs a verb, so why don't I try to write something? And of course, I blamed Xena, as many of us do. So I thought, well, I'll write a piece of Xena fan fiction. And I came up with a bogus name because I was so sure it was going to suck, you know, that I didn't want to be humiliated. And I wrote a book called Jericho. And I started posting it at the Academy of Bards, one part at a time. And I was so terrified that the book was just going to be a big dud that I didn't even go check my email for 2 weeks, because I set up an email account for Anne McMahon. And when I went, I had like 3,000, I'm not even kidding, and three offers to publish the book. So that's kind of how I started. And what I've done honestly every single day since then is work hard and learn how to be a better writer and how to tell a better story. So, I mean, I hope that every book I do gets just a little bit better.
Oh, that is wonderful. And thank you so much for your wonderful stories too.
Thank you.
All right, Kay, how did you get started? I'm so excited to hear your story.
Well, I started pretty young. I think I was like 9, and my favorite TV show didn't have enough girls in it. And that was really frustrating. So I started writing a story. It was not good, but it did have a lot of girls in it, and that's a very consistent theme throughout my writing. And I wanted to go to an art school as a teenager. So I did an audition tape for the theater department, and it was awful. And I knew it was awful. So I thought, okay, well, maybe the writing will be better. So I pulled together some writing, and I did not get in. But I knew that I wanted to. So that summer, I went to a writing camp and have been really devoted to it ever since. I got into the school the next year and have been on this amazing track. And then I met Linda Hill at GCLS in 2019 and had the opportunity to pitch to her.
Oh, wow. That
Yeah.
must have been so amazing and terrifying at the same time, but Linda's wonderful. So
Less terrifying because I don't always hear well. And so when I was introduced, I heard them say that Linda was the senior editor. She's the CEO. I didn't catch that until she gave me her business card after the pitch. And I was like, okay, good thing I didn't hear that right the first time.
oh my goodness. And I love your mug, by the way. And I, again, Karen, love your Xena in the background. All right. And Patty, last but not least with this question, how did you get started? You have worn many, many hats, so.
Well, yeah, my Xena stuff's upstairs. I guess it should have been up there instead. Karen outdid me. I'm like kind of mirroring Anne more than anybody. I did start when I was about 5 or 6 years old, but my 5th grade reading teacher really got me writing. I never stopped writing books. I was, enmeshed in everything Nancy Drew, and then I got into Star Trek, and then I realized that one of the main writers on Star Trek actually got started because he wrote a fan fiction story and Gene Roddenberry read it and he brought him on as a script writer. So I started writing scripts for Star Trek because I am that nerd, and going to the conferences and stuff. And then as a late bloomer, I discovered Xena, who was not gay until I was gay, and then she was gay too. And I love the show so much and found the fan fiction, just like Anne was describing. I was in my early 30s. And by then I was just always writing. I played Dungeons and Dragons as a kid, and I didn't grow up crazy-ish. So that's what I was writing. I was writing in every genre I could possibly think of. And I ended up with the Xena stuff. I ended up going to XenaCons. I met all of these people that were into publishing. And my first book, Soul's Rescue, was initially a Xena Uber, because I was tired of seeing Gabrielle always being the one that had to be rescued and fixed. So I made Gabrielle the rescuer, and she was a firefighter because I was a firefighter, a paramedic. So I just put all that into the book, and I got an offer to publish it, and the rest was history. I don't know, I'm on book number 7. Number 8 will come out next year, and I'm just a happy camper.